Good morning, fam. Welcome back to Erica's EDC, and today we are going to talk about basic beginners steels versus some options that you may be interested in if you do enjoy kind of these old school tool steels, carbon steels, all that good stuff. We're just going to talk steel. This is a very exciting video. I just did a bunch of sharpening this morning, working on some LT Wright knives. They're one of my favorite brands. I believe they're based in Ohio. Really good people. They make phenomenal knives, but they tend to use kind of like the lower tier steels. And I just wanted to talk about the sharpening experience and some, kind of next level options if you do enjoy that kind of sweet mixture of, ease of sharpening and toughness, edge retention, all of that stuff, okay? So let's talk about the lower tier steels first. So generally speaking, when I think lower tier, I'm thinking O1 tool steel, I'm thinking A2 tool steel, 1095, and then in that same tier, but like just a hair higher than those three, 80 CRV2 and 52-100. So 80 CRV2 is a spring steel, 52-100 is a ball bearing steel, I believe. And in my experience, sharpening and using them, I just feel that these two are maybe like a touch above the other three, generally speaking, unless you have like a pretty hard A2. So in that kind of like beginner's steel, surprisingly, my favorite out of all of them is A2. And I feel like A2 is kind of the hidden gem of beginner's steels. Not a ton of people use it. Not a ton of people like make content on it or even talk about it really. But surprisingly, from my experience, A2 is actually one of the harder steels in the lineup. And even if it's, below 60, for me, it actually performs fairly well. I'm talking about like 60 HRC, because I don't think LT Wright runs really any of their steels higher than 60. But I just worked on this LT Wright, not Frontier Valley. That's the one that I literally just did. Yesterday, I worked on this LT Wright Vault 4. This is a very old knife of mine. I've had this for years. This went up to Acadia National Park with me and did a whole July 4th weekend of camp cooking and batoning and just a whole bunch of different processing. And I didn't have to touch it up once when I brought it on that little getaway, but I put a fresh, well-deserved edge on it yesterday, and I just kind of want to show you, how clean it is, because this is a really thick blade stock. Saber ground, but you can get these things razor sharp, and for like outdoor tasks, A2 is pretty good. I actually enjoy it, like I said, more than like O1 for sure. But these are kind of like entry-level steels. They take a shorter period of time to sharpen. However, you generally have to touch them up more often. And that's kind of the appeal to these, is like you can really beat on them outside and then touch them up fairly quickly, even if they receive edge damage. They're just kind of easy to work with. O1 is not my favorite. Like, it's okay. I really enjoy the patina it takes, but out of all of them, this is the least impressive to me, I guess. And I'm literally just talking about the steel. This particular knife, the wood steel mini snake eater designed by James Harris, I should say. This is a phenomenal knife, but if we're just talking about O1 tool steel in general, it just doesn't impress me very much. And yes, I've used it from different makers with different heat treats and geometries. It's just not really that impressive to me. I actually, out of all of the lower tier steels, really aim toward A2 tool steel. It just actually does fairly well for like a cheaper, lower tier steel. And then, you know, 1095 is used all over the place, right? We can get traditional knives, we can get fixed blades. 1095 is probably the most common that I see, and this one is a wicked hit or miss. Like, you can get some really cruddy 1095, like if it's run at 55 HRC and it's like too thick, for instance, you have to touch it up after every use, basically. Some people do 1095 better than others. SE, for me, it kind of depends on the model. I have an SE CR 2.5 in 1095, and it actually is a very nice little knife, and it holds an edge decently well. It really depends on the geometry and what model you're getting, but 1095 is definitely a really common lower tier steel, and you can get some really decent stuff, or you can get some kind of crummy stuff. But like I said, in that same realm, but maybe a touch better, is 80 CRV2 and 52-100. These are steels that I am kind of seeing, you know, circulating a lot more. Again, 80 CRV2 is a complete hit or miss. This particular knife, the PBK Primitive Bear Knives Hunter's EDC, is actually done incredibly well. I have a video under my testing playlist of me processing and hacking through a bunch of large fish. I feed my dogs a raw food diet, and I'm literally like crunching through bone, cutting the heads off, all of this crazy stuff on the video. Check it out, it's awesome. And this literally cut clean through paper before and identical after. So with 80 CRV2, if it's done right, it can actually be really decent. And same with 52-100. This is a full-size spade from BGM Knives, and this is in 52-100. And I will say, from my experience, this steel doesn't really have impressive edge retention for me, even if it's ground super thin like this one. It has a pretty thick blade stock, because of the blade height and the double hollow grind, this thins out incredibly thin behind the edge, which I do have calipers on the way, so I will measure everything from here on out. I'm sure that will make some of you guys happy. But this is crazy thin behind the edge. 52-100, it's very tough. Like, I can beat the crap out of this, like cut a box and hit a staple pretty hard and nothing will happen, but the edge retention just isn't like super impressive to me again. But I will say that the toughness, the edge stability of 52-100 is pretty cool. So if you're looking for kind of that like sharpened pry bar experience where edge retention isn't at the forefront of your mind, but you know, bouncing off of edge damage is really important to you, 52-100 is pretty cool for sure. With all of that being said, you know, these are kind of lower tier, cheaper beginners steels, right? And they're super fun to play with, and I have nothing against them at all. That's why I have so many of them. You know, they're really fun to play around with. All of these make great sharpened pry bars. But if you're one of those people like me who used these for years and years and didn't really even know about the next level up until you were exposed to it, I want to show you some different offerings that definitely are in general above these lower tier steels, but still at a decent price point, and also have all of the characteristics of these lower tier steels plus more. So I'm really excited to show those to you. I will say, all of these steels and all of these experiences are on the channel. I have like so many videos of testing and sharpening. I've sharpened all of these steels many times, so that really gives me a good idea of how they work. But under the knife testing playlist that I have, there are like infinite videos of me beating the pulp out of all of these different types of steels and really showing you how they perform. And there are also tons of reviews on these as well. I have a reviews playlist, and you can watch some pretty in-depth information on all of these, just a heads up. So one that I want to mention right off the bat that I don't have an example of currently is AEB-L. I actually really like that steel. I've had a number of knives come through in it. I had a Wirtz, I believe it's pronounced Wirtz or Wirt, I don't even know. Wirtz made Falcon, I believe it's called. He's out of Washington. Really beautiful knives. I had one come through for testing. The handle was so uncomfortable that I ended up giving that to somebody else, but I do have testing footage of that knife, and the steel itself did fairly well. I've had a few other AEB-L knives come through. I want to obtain another one, but that's actually another steel that I believe is a little bit above those first ones, and it has even better edge retention. It still has really good toughness. You can play around with geometry and get what you want out of it. Great for kitchen knives as well. There's a really nice little steel that I wish I had an example of here. Lined up with AEB-L, I would say Nitro V. So this is a goat head knives trapper in Nitro V at, is it 62, I think? 62 HRC? And I've had a whole bunch of Nitro V come through for the channel. This particular one I haven't tested yet, but I have footage of my BGM Knives mini Kephart in Nitro V. Ooh, I beat the crap out of that thing and it just doesn't get hurt. I actually have it right here. This is in Nitro V. Little tiny mini Kephart. Double hollow ground. This is an old knife. I have really done some messed up stuff with this one. It's all on the channel. But this is a Nitro V. And, you know, this, in my opinion, is very quick to sharpen, super tough, great edge stability. You know, again, kind of at that, like, cheaper price point. And it's a really nice kind of beginner's steel. Nitro V is a stain-resistant steel, but, man, you can really do a lot of work with Nitro V and it's not going to fail you. I actually really enjoy it, especially at around 62 HRC. These types of knives are phenomenal, and I think you're getting a really beautiful sharpening experience, but improved edge retention over those beginner steels with Nitro V. It's definitely a fan favorite. I see a lot of companies starting to dip their toes into it, which is awesome to see. I really enjoy it. This collar is kind of poking me in the face here. Let's talk about CruWear. Another one. Stain resistant, incredible edge retention. If you get a good one, pretty awesome to sharpen, super tough. CruWear is one of my favorite steels, and production companies are using it as well. We have seen the Mini Adamas from Benchmade in CruWear. That's a phenomenal little beater. Just great edge retention. This steel is a pleasure to use, and I actually really think it's a top performer in this field of like mid-grade steels. I love CruWear. I would love to see more of it. I would love to see more makers using it. You can grind this really thin and it will still just cut forever and have incredible toughness. CruWear is a really fun one to play around with. I know Spyderco does it very well. Next one is CPM 154, not to be confused with 154CM. 154CM is not a favorite of mine at all. I have a lot of experience with it. It does not have good edge retention in my opinion, and it glasses out way too easily. It just wants to polish and be pretty and not actually do too much. And when I say glass out, what I mean is there are kind of different levels of sharpness in knives. You can have really toothy, gritting working edges where like you touch the edge and it just, you can feel that bite and that crunch. There are edges that are really beautiful and shiny and polished, and you go to touch the edge and you can't, it's almost like you can't feel that it's sharp, but then you go to cut something or cut through paper and it like whizzes right through, like it sails right through. Or, you know, you go to cut produce and it just glides. Like it doesn't feel bitey and sharp, but it is. And that's what I mean by glass out. So there are steels that really like to glass out, like 154 cm, S45 VN, S35 VN. They all like to kind of just get this glaze where they're sharp, but they're very glassy and they don't bite material very well. And that form of sharpness can be phenomenal for like kitchen use, but if you want to cut rope and baling twine and cardboard for days, sometimes a glassed out, overly polished edge does not benefit you. It just depends on what you're using your knives for. So CPM 154, I actually, again, have decent experience with. This is a Bark River North Country EDC. Really decent fixed blade, super overbuilt, heavy, just a beater. But I think that's what it's geared toward, is, you know, for the back country and using your knife for all different types of things and having it not fail you. This is a beefcake. Really comfortable. One of the most comfortable knives I have in my collection. It just melts in my hand. But this is a, you know, convex ground as every Bark River knife. And it's really nice. You know, CPM 154 is a great mid-tier steel. I find it has really good toughness, edge stability, you know, whatever you want to call it, toughness in all aspects of the knife. Stain resistant, just another great option if you're looking to kind of upgrade a little bit and not pay like a super crazy premium price. And lastly, I'm sure you know what's coming, Magna Cut. Magna Cut is just my baby. I have had such a wild ride with Magna Cut as a steel. My initial impressions, I was not impressed. However, I kept using it from different makers and different HRCs and just, I didn't give up on it, I guess, right away. And people call it a hype steel, but honestly, I freaking love Magna Cut. I think it's exactly what it was formulated to be, which is a stainless, you know, 4V / CruWear type deal. I think it has phenomenal toughness, edge retention, edge stability, all of the good stuff. This is a Steve Kalari Custom Knives Steadfast EDC in Magna Cut at 63.5 HRC, only 11 thou behind the edge, and this is one of my best performing knives. This is a knife that I have content of me batoning kiln dried firewood with, and nothing happened to the edge. Magna Cut is amazing, and more makers are using it. A lot of people are really bumping up that HRC and getting the best attributes out of the steel. It was luckily created to, you know, hit a higher hardness and really not lose any toughness. You know, it should not be below 62 from my experience and my research. And from 62 HRC and up, you are barely losing toughness. Like the higher you go, it's just barely moving there. And anybody that tells you differently, I really wouldn't listen to them, okay? And that's why companies like Hogue, they ran it around 61 in their first production run, and then they actually bumped it up to 62, like 63, because you're not losing anything bumping it up. All you're gaining is edge retention. Another perfect example of a company doing it right is Essie. Surprisingly, the company that has always given us thick, overbuilt, soft knives is running their Magna Cut in their new model at 62 to 63. How exciting is that? Because again, that's what it was made for. You are not sacrificing anything running it 62, 63, 63.5. You're barely losing anything. So there's no point in running it soft because it's not going to perform as well, but you can run it harder, thinner, and it's just going to have incredible edge retention, incredible toughness. I love Magna Cut, and I'm calling it a mid-tier steel because it was advertised and marketed as the new super steel, but quite frankly, the consumers decide what super steels are. And it was a super steel for a hot second, but everybody's using Magna Cut. It's very easy to work with for the most part, and I think it just isn't really that super anymore, although it has been around for a pretty short period of time in the grand scheme of things. It's just not like super anymore. I think it's fantastic for a mid-grade steel, but you know, super steel in my opinion would be more like a 15V, K390, S125V, S110V type deal. You know, some aspects of it are super steel, I guess, but because it's so generic at this point, I'm not really classifying it as one. But Magna Cut is incredible. It's just so beautiful to sharpen, very quick to sharpen. Like, easiest deburring process. The burr comes up very stable and quick. It's just a pleasure to use. And for an outdoor knife, if you want like a kind of beefier beater in Magna Cut, they work great if you thin it out. Like, this blade stock is pretty thick, and I had this made a little overbuilt so I could really test it and beat on it, and it does thin out to 11th out behind the edge, but overall, you know, this is just a sweet beater, and it takes everything I give to it. So that's just kind of a discussion about some of my favorite steels, and you know, I will always love and have a special place in my heart for what I grew up with, which are these kind of entry-level steels. I just also know that as you learn and grow in the knife community, there just are kind of like better things out there, whether you want to admit it or not. All of these steels that I showed at the beginning are kind of by the wayside for me. I don't go looking for them anymore because I know there are things out there that are superior in every single aspect, and these are a blast to use, but it's not like we're crapping on all of those lower tier steels because they're fun to use as well. But yeah, those are some, you know, things to think about if you're itching for your new knife. Maybe you want to try something fancy. Check out all of those steels. Like I said, I have so much footage of testing these and running them through their paces and sharpening and all that stuff. Check out my playlists. They have loads of videos on them. If you want to watch that batoning video, that's on the knife testing playlist. Yeah, I hope that you enjoyed that. I would love to see some appropriate, fun discussion down in the comments below. As always, if you start to get vulgar or disrespectful, boop, you're out. And sometimes it's not even my decision, it's YouTube's. But yeah, let's converse down in the comments below. Tell me what you enjoy using. I always love hearing what you guys do with your knives. But with that being said, go use your shit. Learn how to sharpen your knives. I will see you on the next video. I love you so much, fam. Take care.